in France, as many of your viewers and listeners probably know, that Marine Le Pen, the kind of the right-wing party, kind of they got about 32% of the vote, whereas Macron's party only got 15% of the vote. So
Yeah.
a massive loss, devastating. But of course, Macron could have said, oh, what do I care? This was a European election. But of course, Macron knows the people who went to the polls and went to vote, they voted based on domestic issues. So they did not
Yeah.
say, oh, Macron is a great French president, but we really would like to see Le Pen play a bigger role in the European Parliament.
Right.
And,
Okay.
and I think what he's trying to do, and this is, I think, interesting also when we look at the United States, because this is a little bit what happened or sometimes seems to happen also with candidates in the United States. He now dissolved the French parliament because he believes if he calls snap elections, and Le Pen does very well, that he can basically then show that the right is incapable of governing. Because in 2 years, there are presidential elections. And Le Pen doesn't want to become prime minister, which she could after the parliamentary elections. She wants to be president. So Macron's hope is that if she does if they should be very strong in the upcoming elections, and then if her party does very bad at actual governing, that in 2 years, the French people will say, okay, we gave her a chance to try governing for 2 years. Now she wants to be president. We're not going to do this. But of course, this can backfire.
It could go the other way too, right?
Oh, yes.
I mean,
yes.
She could do a great job as prime minister. People love her. And then he's really, truly in deep.
This is what I hope, for example.
Yeah. So there's 5 years of the French president, right? So how far along is he in? Is he 2 years in? Is he in his second term?
3 years. He's his second term. He's 3 years in. He's not going to run again in 2027. But of course, he wants his because he can't, and he also, of course, wants to see his party, however, to remain in power. So for him, this is kind of the last hooray, so to speak.
So it's a 2-term. They have 2 terms.
Yes.
Rule in France, 2 consecutive. He could run again, like in another 5 years after he's out, right? I think that's how it works in France.
Well, it depends. It's very tricky because there's this joke, kind of to bring some humor into this, right? When you ask people where the American, in the library, where you ask the librarian where the American Constitution is, they point you to a nice bookshelf where there is the U.S. Constitution, and when they ask you where the French Constitution is, the answer is very often, well, we have them back at periodicals, because I think the French officially are now at the Fifth Republic, so they kind of change their. It's always a republic, but they change their political system on a very regular basis. So there is France and also Italy in many ways. Some European countries are notoriously difficult to govern. So I always have to smile about this. It's true that the snarky Europeans very often like to say, "Oh, America is such a young nation. They don't know anything. They have no experience." But in fact, right, the United States, for all its flaws, and we all have our flaws, they have been kind of continuously governed more or less based on the same constitution for 250 years. Yeah. That is not true for many. That's the exception in Europe, to be quite honest, right? And by the way, some countries, including Germany or Italy, right, they did not come into existence before the 1870s. So you could make the claim justifiably. So if you compare the states, right, the German state is 100 years younger than the United States, and so is Italy. So again, we Europeans like to be, snarky on all these issues, but reality is it's more complex. But it's sometimes we're not as old in these political issues as we would like to be.
Okay, so Emmanuel Macron has 2 more years of this particular term.
Yes.
He's hoping, first of all, what does dissolving the government mean? So all of the people who are currently serving as members of the parliament in France, suddenly now they don't have a job?
Well, not yet. So the elections, it's an election then a runoff election. So the first one is on June 30th and the other one is on July 7th. So he's the president and he appoints the prime minister. But the prime minister is the person that very often they act on behalf of the president. The French presidency is a quite strong institution. I would argue probably even more so than the American president. Okay. But the prime minister needs a majority in parliament. So what Macron is now, basically Macron's argument, he says, if based on these EU elections, the French people no longer have any trust in me, right? We need to have a new election so that the French parliament reflects what in fact the voice or the opinion of the French people is. But what this could mean is that he will remain president, but he could then have potentially a prime minister that is from the right-wing party, because they would be the only party that have a majority in parliament. And that, of course, would be a very, very interesting construction, because usually what happened in the past is that the people who voted for the president, in this case Macron, then usually in parliamentary elections also voted for the president's party. So it's not like in the United States, where you often have the opposite, right? That one party gets the president and then you have midterms and the other party wins the midterm elections. In France, it's very often the other way around. You confirm the president and you kind of then confirm the president again, because you say he needs his prime minister, the appointed prime minister needs a majority in parliament so they can effectively govern. So you could now be in a situation.
That does make sense.
It makes sense, right?
Yeah. When we have the split government, when we have a president and then a Congress that's from a different party, nothing gets done at all.
And this could be the devious plan. Is he playing 4D chess? Maybe he is. Right. This could be Macron's plan, because he says, okay, even if Le Pen's, because she is not going to be prime minister because she wants to run for president, but whoever she and her party choose to be prime minister, they will be in an antagonistic relationship with the president, who is very powerful. So then the question is, who wins, let's say, the fight for public opinion? Because Macron then can try to hamper the right-wing government and then say, well, look at those guys, they don't get anything done. And then people potentially turn away from them. But of course, at the same time, the government could say, we have all these great plans to save the French nation, but the president is obstructing us, all the way. So this is then going to be the interesting question. Who is more charismatic, right? Who will be the actors? This is going to be like a truly like a French soap opera, if you will. This could be a very, very exciting thing, at least for the French to observe.
This is so foreign to me, no pun intended, but it really, why would he, right now the French parliament is run by, the prime minister is in the same party as Macron at the moment,
correct,
right?
Yes.
So then why not just continue your 2 years doing what you want to do, making the changes you want to make, and say, well, in 2 years we'll find out how people vote. I mean, why screw himself over? I mean, if this other parliament comes in.
I think I can give you a perfect answer to this question that all of you as listeners will immediately intuitively understand. Imagine it's the year 2014, hypothetically, and it becomes clear that Donald Trump is somewhat rising in the polls, that he is very popular, and there's a certain fear that he might win the presidential election in 2016. And then President Barack Obama, by stroke of genius, if that would have been possible, so I have to stretch this hypothetically a little bit, that he says, okay, Donald Trump is going to run for president in 2 years, but before that, how about we make him Speaker of the House? Right? And then hypothetically, Trump would have been Speaker of the House from 2014 to 2016. And if he would have made a blunder or embarrassed himself, then people would not have voted for him in 2016. And this is what Macron is counting on. The French establishment that Macron is part of, they are terrified of a Le Pen presidency, because really the only office that matters in France is the presidency. So his move is to say, if I can get her party at least partially into power now, and then they kind of, disenchant themselves, right? If they then reveal themselves to be incompetent, which I don't think they are, but this is his path, then in 2 years, she will lose the presidential election. But if I keep going with the current government that is deeply, deeply unpopular, as he is deeply, deeply unpopular, as these election results have shown, then he will then his party will definitely lose the presidential elections in 2 years. So this is the whole point of this move, is to make sure that Marine Le Pen is not going to become president of France. Because this, I believe, would, beyond Europe, be a true earthquake, right? Because this would be somebody who has been, and I mean this in a positive way, but she has been kind of a right-wing populist, because I think populist, there's a reason why it sounds like, why popular is part of the word. But I think that then would show that Europeans are no longer afraid. So this would be very, very significant beyond Europe and the establishment. And not as a conspiracy, right? We see now, this is a tactic. They say we need to somehow convince the people that they are not capable of governing. As you said, this can backfire. This can absolutely backfire.
This is like the dumbest thing I've ever heard. This is almost like what we see here in the United States with elections, where rather than the parties coming up with good ideas, like rather than Democrats coming up with good ideas, all they do is say, but Trump is this authoritarian dictator, and if he gets into power, all hell's going to break loose. They don't come to the table with, vote for us because we have good ideas. This is what we're going to do for the country. They say, vote for us because the alternative is terrible. That sounds like this is what's going on on steroids in France, where he's
100%.
saying, "Oh, well, we just want to show that the other side is horrible so that you don't." Why doesn't he just keep the government he has and actually have some good ideas, implement them for the French people within the party that he has, and that they would be able to do it because not only is he from the same party, right? So there would be a lot of that power there to actually make good change for the people and convince them that you deserve to be back in power. Your party is a good party in the next couple of years, rather than, oh, well, the other guys suck worse. I mean, that's the strategy.
Yes, and to answer it, no, but you made the perfect comparison. This is, by the way, even the campaign here was a reflection of what is going on in the United States. Like we had campaign ads saying every vote for the right is a vote for Vladimir Putin. So it was exactly the same kind of thing, right? And
Wow.
if vote for us to save, this is the new thing. They no longer talk about democracy; they talk about our democracy, meaning the democracy of those who are in power. Even though that the parallels to the United States are striking. Again, they seem, I think, more opaque because the Europeans are what the Europeans are, or we are what we are. But the kind of strategy and exactly what you said, the kind of saying we have no ideas of our own, so the only thing we can do is to smear the other side as racists, fascists, Nazis,
Right.
Putin stooges, whatever,
Right.
an ultra mega hyper extreme MAGA, whatever. I mean, we had a liberal party, which in Europe liberals, like in the United States, means left, in like small 9 million Austria, and they had Donald Trump on their campaign posters saying, who will protect Europe from Trump? So they literally were running the same thing as they ran in the United States. And I think to answer your question is because they don't have ideas. Now, does Le Pen, does the right have better ideas? We can discuss this in greater detail.
Yeah.
But I believe that many on the entrenched left, or and it would also include that, by the way, establishment conservatives, they just cannot make the course correction. They simply don't understand that they're deeply unpopular with the working class, that everything green is deeply unpopular, which is why the Greens were clobbered in the European elections. They don't understand that people want less migration, right? They don't see that people, and we can have a longer conversation about this as well. But I think for many, the entire rainbow pride LGBTQ plus stuff has gone too far, and the right-wing parties are the only ones who say that. And I think that's amazing. Even Macron does this thing that so many hate on the right as well, right? He's basically governing in many areas like a leftist. And if there is an election year, then he's all of a sudden like the butch French nationalist. And people start to look through this. As you correctly point out, it's a 5-year term for 4 years. Like he does not act as you would expect a patriotic French president to act. And when people are about to vote, all of a sudden he realizes, oh, wait a moment, I'm the French president, so I now have to show my French bona fides. And people are smothered in this.
Thank you for watching this clip from the full Kim Iversen show, which you could catch just by heading to that link down below, KimIversonShow.com. You can watch the full show from what you just watched, or you could catch the full show live Monday through Friday, live streams, 5 p.m. Pacific, 8 p.m. Eastern at KimIversonShow.com. See you then. Be sure to like, share, and subscribe. Never miss an episode. Never miss a clip. Never miss a segment. Thanks, guys.